A final pledge. Scotland is offered more powers to stay in the Union. With both sides jostling for votes, the No campaign ups its pitch if voters reject independence. But Yes supporters claim it's a sign of desperation and an insult to voters.
Also tonight, Rotherham's Police and Crime Commissioner finally resigns. He was heavily criticised over the city's child abuse scandal and police investigations, but offered no apology. And moving tributes to the young Brits murdered in Thailand as police release pictures of a key suspect.
This is ITV News at 6:30 with Julie Etchingham in Edinburgh and Alistair Stewart in the studio.
Well, good evening from Edinburgh, where the independence debate has been heating up today, the penultimate day of campaigning before Thursday's historic referendum. It is still too close to call, but today the three main party leaders at Westminster made a late bid to swing it their way with a promise to transfer more powers if Scotland rejects independence. It was an offer the Yes campaign called a panic measure and an insult to voters. Our correspondent Martin Geiser reports on a pledge of power.
Mr. Miliband,
there's a definite air of pandemonium around the final days of this referendum. Some are sensing panic too. Ed Miliband joined the Prime Minister and Nick Clegg today in a last-ditch offer to the Scottish electorate. Vote no, and we promise you'll get more power. The vow made front-page news this morning, promising a continuation of the Barnett allocation of funding for Scotland, increasing the powers of the Scottish Parliament to raise revenue itself, and giving them the final say on how much is spent on the NHS.
it's a clear vote for change in terms of stronger powers for a Scottish Parliament and also big economic change that I think the country needs. And I think that that is better, faster, safer change than the risks of voting yes.
Why is that only being made clear 48 hours before the polls open?
Well, to be fair, I've been part of this campaign for 2 years and I've been making it clear all the way along.
The pro-independence campaign countered that with the same steely message they've been using from the start.
The choice we've got on Thursday is simple. We vote yes and we decide the powers we have in Scotland. We vote no, we hand that decision back to Westminster and we have to cross our fingers and hope.
Both sides are chasing every last vote, but they have a problem. A large chunk of the electorate just don't listen to politicians. People like Jock Gordon. Homeless for years, he dropped through the cracks in society. He's just one of a million Scots who don't normally vote, but have registered for this. So here's the message from the three Westminster leaders. How do they get a message through to you? How can they speak to you?
They cannot. I've lived through the system people like this have actually made. How can they say anything that's going to make me feel better when they've left me with no money, left me destitute, left me on the streets? They can't say nothing to me.
This missing million are difficult for pollsters to find and to follow, so some experts believe the voting predictions we've had so far may be skewed.
They're the people that are going to make it such a high turnout, and how they vote, how they voted in the past is not known, so it's pretty difficult to add them into the equation to come up with a correct answer.
So the powerful are now pleading and the marginalised take centre stage. This referendum really is a one-off. Martin Geisler, ITV News, Edinburgh.
Well, one of the Yes campaign's key pledges to protect health service funding has come under attack today. A leaked document suggests sweeping cuts of up to £450 million will be needed anyway. Well, our Scotland correspondent Debbie Edward is at a Yes campaign rally in Glasgow tonight. Debbie, the NHS really a key battleground ahead of Thursday's vote.
Yes, and it's perhaps in light of the momentum that the Yes campaign have gained from rallies like this in George Square tonight that the No campaign went on the attack today, distributing a document leaked by an NHS doctor in which it states an additional £400 to £450 million worth of additional savings will have to be made if Scotland's health boards are to reach their targets. The Better Together campaign claiming that flies in the face of the Yes campaign's claims that only a yes vote can protect the NHS from cuts. Well, the Scottish Scottish Government have said that they are the one protecting and increasing the NHS budget here in Scotland, and that only independents can offer the health service a brighter future. The Yes campaign really have been able to gain some traction on this NHS debate, despite health being a devolved issue. The Better Together campaign say it's the biggest lie of the referendum so far.
Okay, Debbie, thank you very much indeed for that. Well, on the English side of the Scottish border, Westminster's offer to give Scotland more power is causing some concern tonight. To the north of that border, public spending per person is already higher than to the south. People in England's border towns are now worried that that gap will widen, whichever way Thursday's vote goes. Our correspondent John Ray reports now from Berwick-upon-Tweed on the spending gap.
It's the town at the northernmost tip of England, the sharp end of a debate in which they have no voice. The people of Berwick-upon-Tweed, men like taxi driver George Richardson.
I can see it's going to cause a lot of anguish in some
An
families.
expat Scot whose work and family is divided by a border which might soon become an international frontier. He already looks across with envy.
You know, you've got free healthcare in Scotland. You've got, free prescriptions. Yeah, I can understand them getting a bad deal.
At the moment, for every £1 spent on public services in England, just over 10 pence is spent in Scotland, almost 6 pence in Wales and 3.5 pence in Northern Ireland. That means that public spending is more than £1,000 higher per person in Scotland than the average across the UK. Berwick's ancient battlements speak of a time the English and Scots fought for territory rather than government money.
This is a town that's changed hands a dozen or more times over the centuries, but now, whether it's independence or Devo Max, which waits for the neighbours to the north, there is a growing sense of unease here that somehow they might be stuck the wrong side of the border.
Jim Herbert is a campaigner for what he calls a fair deal for the north of England.
Many people in London don't even know we exist. They don't know how far north we are. We're a lot further north than Hadrian's Wall, and there's an awful lot of Scotland that's further south than us.
Few suggest seriously that Berwick switches allegiance again, but here history teaches that no border necessarily lasts forever. John Ray, ITV News, Berwick-upon-Tweed.
Well, our political editor Tom Bradby joins me now, and Tom, it's becoming increasingly clear whichever way this vote goes, it will have an impact on the way that we're all governed.
Yes, it certainly will, and I think everyone's waking up to that rather late. The Yes campaign are obviously saying that the No campaign are getting desperate today, and I think that's a pretty fair analysis. It's on social media. The joke is it's not the Stay Together campaign anymore, it's the Name Your Prize campaign. And already a lot of English, particularly Tory MPs, are starting to complain about the promise to go on with the Barnett formula. I have to say that annoys Scots a lot, and you can see why, because actually if you look at the maths, when it comes to the Barnett formula, certainly in the last 5 years, Scotland has brought in tax at least as much in all but 1 year as it has taken from the Treasury in public spending. Now that is the core of the economic argument for the SNP and for nationalists campaigning for independence. They say, listen, at the very least we wouldn't be worse off, but we might be richer if oil revenue increases.
OK, Tom, for the moment, thank you very much indeed. And that is it now from Edinburgh. Back to Alistair with the rest of the day's news.
After weeks of pressure and calls from all sides for him to resign, South Yorkshire's Police and Crime Commissioner finally relented today and stood down. Sean Wright was heavily criticised for his part in Rotherham's child abuse scandal and police inaction. Damon Green reports.
What Rotherham thinks of Sean Wright has been coming through loud and clear for weeks, and today he finally got the message. In his resignation statement, South Yorkshire's ex-Crime Commissioner said, "My role is detracting from the important issue, which should be everybody's focus, the 1,400 victims outlined in the report. With this in mind, I feel that it is now right to step down to ensure that the important issues outlined in the report about tackling child sexual exploitation can be discussed and considered in full and without distraction."
You are the least credible witness I've ever come across. I don't believe what you're saying.
I suggest that you're not actually fit to carry out those statutory duties and therefore not fit to hold your office.
It wasn't just the people of Rotherham. Ever since the J report was published, every political figure from the Prime Minister downwards has told him to go.
It would be churlish not to accept his resignation, which we do. We've noted it. We wished it had happened 10 days ago, but he has done the right thing. We can now focus on the victims.
As for the victims, they've watched in disbelief as the elected commissioner resisted demand after demand to quit. They say his refusal to go says everything about him.
I think he's very selfish and very arrogant about the whole situation. I think he's got no respect for victims and survivors and their families. It's almost as if it's been all about him and all about himself. He's dragged this out for 3 weeks. I think he should have done it 3 weeks ago and prevented victims going through more pain.
It was confirmed tonight he won't be receiving any severance payment, but South Yorkshire will now need to look for a new commissioner. Damon Green, ITV News in Rotherham.
America's Defence Secretary has declared the United States to be at war with Islamic State. He also said US ground troops could join Iraqis in combating IS fighters. Chuck Hagel was heckled by anti-war protesters today as he told senators that defeating the terror group would not be easy nor brief. As many as 500 migrants have drowned off the coast of Malta after their boat was apparently sunk deliberately by people traffickers. They were heading to Europe from Egypt. 2 survivors, both Palestinians, claimed that their boat was rammed by another vessel. Lewis Vaughan-Jones has more.
The rescue effort could only do so much. The Maltese armed forces brought a handful of survivors to shore. 500 refugees were on a ship trying to reach Europe. The people traffickers in charge ordered them to change boats. When they refused, the traffickers reportedly rammed their vessel and watched them drown.
You have a very organised networks of human traffickers and criminals who are doing their utmost to make sure that, as the International Organisation for Migration called it, a mass murder in the Mediterranean.
According to the UN Refugee Agency, some 130,000 people have arrived in Europe by sea so far this year. That's more than double the 60,000 recorded in 2013. This year, more than 2,500 people have drowned or gone missing attempting to cross the Mediterranean.
Well, this year we are looking at the record number of arrivals.
The conflict in Syria is part of the reason for the rise, and there are now calls for the EU to give more help and resources to countries in southern Europe.
There needs to be a concerted, collective effort by the European countries to do more in the Mediterranean. The Italians have mounted an incredible effort. They have saved thousands of people.
This is the Italian Coast Guard during a recent rescue effort. But for every life saved, there are so many others lost at sea. Lewis Vaughan-Jones, ITV News.
Still to come, a new twist in the hunt for a teenager missing for 11 days. Plus, how Britain's generosity for cancer sufferer Stephen Sutton will change lives up and down the country. All of the details when we come back. Welcome back. The families of the 2 British tourists murdered in Thailand spoke of their shock today and of their loss. The parents of Hannah Witheridge said she made every day a little more wonderful. David Miller's family said he was adored and will be sorely missed. Well, today police on the island of Koh Tao released CCTV pictures of one of their main suspects. Ben Chapman has the details.
Is this the murderer running away? A shirtless suspect filmed just 50 metres from the beach on the night 2 British students were killed, now being questioned by Thai police. Today, as tourists and locals mourned their loss with flowers at the shore, the families of David Miller and Hannah Witheridge did so with words. David was hard-working, bright and conscientious, with everything to look forward to. He was very giving to his family and friends, and we all adored him, they said. He will be sorely missed. Hannah Witheridge's family described her as a beautiful, intelligent, loving young woman who poured joy into the lives of all who knew her. She was selfless and caring and made each and every day that little bit more wonderful. Sentiments echoed today by one of her teachers.
It's hard to put into words how we're all feeling. It's really hit the school community, I think.
all the kids, whether they knew Hannah or not from her time here, the staff still remember her, and she's one of those kids you'll always remember for the rest of your life.
Hannah and David left a party at this bar in the early hours of the morning and walked to a dark, quiet corner of the beach where they were attacked. One of the distraught friends they were with that night told another tourist about their desperate search for the missing pair.
In 1 minute, the guy was crying and he don't stop, and he said it was like my friend, and I was looking for him and I was calling him all the night.
Thai police suspect the killer may be a Burmese migrant worker. They found a pair of blood-stained jeans in one house and are now questioning 3 suspects. As they do, a shocked island community and 2 devastated families are left waiting for answers. Ben Chapman, ITV News.
Here, police searching for the missing schoolgirl Alice Gross say they are urgently hunting for a 41-year-old man who hasn't been seen for 2 weeks. Well, Sejal Carrier is at Hanwell in West London live for us this evening, where Alice is from. Sejal, what else have the police been telling you?
Well, they want help to find this 41-year-old Latvian national, Arnis Zalkans. He's a builder who went missing about a week after Alice Gross disappeared. Police believe that he left for work in the early hours of Thursday, the 4th of September, and was due to meet a work colleague so that they could travel to work together, but he never turned up. And police believe that his normal route would have been along the Grand Union Canal here behind me, a route which police believe that Alice took on the day that she disappeared. Now, they don't believe that Alice and Mr. Zalkans knew each other, but they believe that he may have information that will help in their search for her.
Sejal, thank you. 2 men have been killed in a helicopter crash at Flamborough Head in East Yorkshire. Their private helicopter crashed into the sea this afternoon. It was heading to Humberside Airport in North Lincolnshire when it got into difficulties. It is not yet known what caused the crash. And 6,000 jobs will go at Birmingham City Council by 2018. It today said if staff reductions aren't made, the consequences would be catastrophic. Finally, it has been revealed today that Stephen Sutton, the teenager who died from cancer, raised an astonishing £5 million for cancer charities. He died in May, aged just 19. But as Rupert Evelyn reports, his legacy will be the good works and medical research that his remarkable efforts will now fund.
Stephen Sutton inspired millions of people, raised millions of pounds, and now 4 months after his death, his legacy is revealed. His bucket list of fundraising activities has created a list of beneficiaries.
I don't want to remember it as the unfortunate case of a teenager who didn't get to fulfil everything he could. So part of doing everything I'm doing is fulfilling this. So when my friends and family look back, they can be proud of me.
The teenager with cancer who set out to raise £10,000 achieved 500 times that, with a £5 million total. In keeping with Stephen's wish, it'll be spent helping young teenage cancer sufferers.
We are investing in 8 specialist teenage cancer trust units in 7 cities across the UK. And we'll also be investing in some vital research and the training needs for professionals that work with teenagers and young adults with cancer.
Stephen Sutton achieved his goal with the help of numerous familiar faces. Yet it is those many, many young cancer patients that most of us do not know who will benefit. No wonder Stephen's mother said today that she was immensely proud of her son. Rupert Evelyn, ITV News.
Well said. Later on tonight's ITV News at 10, Julie's been soaking up the significance of 300 years of union with an historian looking at Scotland's future by studying its past.
The announcement of the treaty itself was greeted with tumult on the streets here in Edinburgh.
So join Julie and Mark later, but from all of us for now, bye-bye.